Turn the lights on for the Tyler Bright and Early podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Bright. PBJ Productions' official flagship podcast for all things college football centered. And yeah, we switched it up a little bit today. I'm wearing the headset, adds a little bit more flexibility, you know. I'm not hunched over talking into a microphone. So we're rolling with this today. I'm playing with it. I'm going to see how it goes, but I'm liking it so far. So, yeah, make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms so we can post short reels of all the episodes of content, some spicy takes that I got here and there. You can see that on Instagram, TikTok, as well as listen to full episodes on Spotify and watch full episodes on YouTube as well. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, follow us wherever that may be, so you can stay up to date on all things Tyler, Bright and Early. We're going to be talking about the Big Ten here today. We're going to be doing the first half, part one of the Big Ten win totals, kind of seeing who's going to overachieve, who's going to underachieve. What's the Big Ten looking like in the Midwestern Conference? Although you can't say it's the Midwestern Conference anymore. Historically, yes, but now we got teams on the West Coast. We got Rutgers on the East Coast. Let's just jump right into it. Also, quick fun fact for you: I sorted these in alphabetical order, and Illinois is the first team that's up. The ninth letter of the alphabet. You know, in other conferences such as SEC, you got Alabama and ACC. Boston College, though I feel like there's an A school, but I'm just blanking on it right now. And then you have Arizona and Arizona State in the Big 12. But enough of that. So first up, Illinois. So their win total is set at 7.5 wins. And I like Illinois. I think Illinois is a really interesting team with Brett Bielema. You know, he had a very successful tenure at Wisconsin. A lot of people argue, should he have left Wisconsin the first time? You know, should he have gone to Arkansas? Because he went to Arkansas, went to this SEC conference that was so great and mighty and struggled. Partly because he went to Arkansas, and Arkansas is in a very tough conference, you know, but he didn't have much success at Arkansas. Kind of went to the NFL, kind of studied under Bill Belichick, and now he's at Illinois, where he's done a pretty good job. You know, back in 2024, they went 10-3, so that was a very successful season for them. Finished 16th in the AP poll. I like Illinois, but let's take a look at their schedule before we make any takes on whether they're going to be under and over 7.5. Pulling up the schedule right here. Okay, so they start off against Western Illinois. Then they go on the road to Duke, host Western Michigan, go Broncos, at Indiana, USC, at Purdue, Ohio State, at Washington, Rutgers, Maryland, at Wisconsin, and Northwestern. And I think you got some tough games in there. You got Ohio State, which you host them, by the way, and USC, you also host them at Indiana. We'll talk a little bit more about very soon how Indiana is going to do in year 2 under Kurt Cignetti. But it just seems like all their tough games are at home. And this was a 10-win team. You know, Brett Bielema had a really good season a couple years ago, I believe, in his first or second season. He had a really good season, and then he wasn't able to capitalize the next season, went like 5-7 or 4-8. So can he replicate that success that he had last year this season as for this team? You got to look at some of the guys coming in, some of the transfers that they got. They have a lot of outgoing transfers, but incoming transfers, you got a couple guys from Ball State, you got a Florida State guy in there, so you got some pretty good. You have Ethan Hampton from Northern Illinois, and he was a quarterback of that upset that Notre Dame team for the Huskies last season. They got some good talent on this roster. And I don't even know if Hampton's going to be the starting quarterback. But anyway, we're getting a little bit off the rails real quick. But so win total set at 7.5. I'm going to take the over. I like this Illini team. All their hard games are at home, and like if you look at their floor, okay, you lose to USC, you lose to Indiana, you lose to Ohio State. And maybe you lose another game. Maybe you lose to, I think they'll beat Wisconsin. Yeah, like those are 3 games where like I could see them. Okay, yeah, you could lose those games. Obviously, you're losing to Ohio State. But like I think 8-4 is pretty likely. They can even go 9-3. I'm really high on this team, and I'm sure a lot of people are as well. This is a very popular pick among the Big Ten. But I like the Illini. I like what Bielema's doing there. And I think he's going to stay there for a pretty long time. Next up, Indiana. Their win total is set at 8.5. The Indiana Hoosiers, who made the college football playoff last year and got smacked by Notre Dame. Now, they deserve to make the playoff, I think. Well, some people may, well, that's arguable. Should they have made the playoff last season? That's up for debate. You know, some people might say, oh, no, it should have been one of the SEC teams, but you know, they did. I feel like they made the right decision for what they knew at the time. You can't play revisionist history. Of course, people are going to be like, oh, they would have done so much better in the play. You don't know that. You don't know that. You're just guessing. You're just guessing, bro. Just accept it. But so they went 11-2 last season, probably the best season in Hoosiers history. You know, I don't have a great knowledge on the history of Indiana football, other than they've kind of sucked. But you know, I do like Cignetti. But is he going to keep up that success? You know, they played Ohio State last season, got smacked, and played Notre Dame in the playoff and lost convincingly. So it's like, what are we going to see from this Indiana team? They had a lot of guys from JMU who transferred from James Madison, and now it's a little bit different this year. So there's a little bit of an unknown factor. Let's take a look at the schedule as I make my way to the page, and let's see who they got this year. Okay, so they host Old Dominion on August 30th, Kennesaw State, Indiana State, Illinois, at Iowa, at Oregon, Michigan State, UCLA, at Maryland, at Penn State, Wisconsin, and at Purdue. Now, I don't know. So it's at 8.5. So that means that they need to go 9-3 if they're going to make the over. Well, let's just break it down real quick. I cannot see them winning at Autzen Stadium in Eugene against the Ducks. I'm not seeing that. Penn State, that's a loss too on the road. So that's 2 losses right there. And then I can see them losing to Illinois as well. So that's 3 losses right there. That puts you at 9-3. And then you could also have a trap game somewhere where you just get upset by someone. It's interesting. So they have 4 home games right off the bat, and then they have 2 road games, and then it kind of flops from there. I don't know. It's more likely of a push. I think it's like an 8-4, 9-3 is really. I'll take the over. I'm not super confident on that pick, just because like I think there's 2 losses right there. And then the potential loss to Illinois, and then they have to lose. They have to get upset by someone in the other game to make the under. But so for like just to be conservative here, I'm going to take the over. But you know, would I be shocked if they are the under and they go like 8-4? I wouldn't be surprised by that. Wouldn't be surprised by that at the slightest. So next up, the Iowa Hawkeyes, who actually did kind of good on offense, or better than what they usually did. You know, and maybe that's the Tim Lester effect. Tim Lester, I know him. He was the head coach of Western Michigan, the Kalamazoo Kid. I saw a lot of Tim Lester at Western Michigan growing up when I was in high school. I think Tim Lester's a pretty good coach. He's a pretty good coordinator, as well as Kirk Ferentz. You know, he knows what he's doing. I know a lot of people give him a lot of flack for the offensive production over the past few years, but they're just that old school team that's going to run that pro style, that's going to run like a 1980s, 1990s offense. But you know what? If they have success with it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, I don't know. So the Hawkeyes coming in, they had a lot of draft picks, you know, kind of in the later rounds. They had a pick in the 3rd round, Caleb Johnson, and then in the 5th round and a couple of 7th round picks. But let's take a look at the Hawkeye schedule. Let's take a look at it. So they got Albany, at Iowa State, UMass, at Rutgers, Indiana, at Wisconsin, Penn State, Minnesota, Oregon, at USC, Michigan State, and at Nebraska. First half of the schedule, I think, is pretty manageable. The second half of the schedule, maybe not so much. But because the Iowa State game, they pretty much have dominated in that series. I know I talked about that in the Iowa State series in the Big 12 win totals, but like Iowa does fairly well in that rivalry game. But it is a rivalry game, so anyone can win. You got a tough draw with Penn State and Oregon, and at USC is like, yeah, you get Penn State and Oregon at home, but that's like 2 of the top 3 teams in the Big Ten. It's just a tough. Well, Penn State and Oregon. Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking you at USC, but then you go at USC on the road and at Nebraska, which I think Nebraska is a pretty good team, not a great team, but we'll talk about that later. Their win total for the Hawkeyes, I don't even know if I said it, at 7.5. So automatic losses, Penn State, Oregon, I think at USC, and then I also think you lose at Nebraska too. But that's 4. Which is but you need to go 7. I see. Yeah. What did they go last season? I'm blanking on what they went last season. What did the Hawkeyes do last season? They went 7-5, or I guess they went 8-4 and lost the bowl game. I could see a repeat of that. I'm going to take the over. I want to take the over for the Iowa Hawkeyes. I think 8-4 is more likely than 7-5. I do like the direction that they're doing on offense. You know, it's a little bit of an improvement. Is it a lot? No, it's not. It's not a lot. But like, as long as you get the job done, who cares? I feel like a lot of times that gets kind of, sorry, my light just fell a little bit. So sorry if that looks like we're doing really good. We're doing good. There's a lot of I feel like it gets overblown a little bit how the offenses have changed over the years, that everyone needs to be a spread offense. I'm going on a tangent here, but like, I feel like it gets a little bit overblown. They're going to be just fine. They're going to be just fine. So next up, we got the Maryland Terrapins at a whopping 4.5 win total. It's going to be a do or die season for Mike Locksley. I can tell you that. He's in his 7th season, which is kind of crazy. Pep Hamilton is going to be in his 1st season as the offensive coordinator, so that'll be kind of interesting. Hold on a second. I'm going to fix this real quick. Okay, we are good now. Okay, light is fixed. Let's take a look at the schedule. So they have Florida Atlantic right off the bat, then Northern Illinois, Towson, at Wisconsin, Washington, Nebraska, at UCLA, Indiana, at Rutgers, at Illinois, Michigan, and at Michigan State, at Ford Field. So it's actually a neutral site game. And that's definitely a Michigan State home game, but it's just in Detroit. I don't see it. So like, you'll get your wins at Florida Atlantic and Northern Illinois and Towson. You will start off 3-0. At Wisconsin, that's going to be a tough game for you. Washington will probably, and then it's just the rest of the schedule. I just feel like Maryland's a bottom 5 team in the Big Ten. And that's more so due to the talent that's in the Big Ten, because you have a lot of great schools, but they're not going bowling. That's for sure. I'm taking the under. I think 4-8. I think at 4-8 at best. Because, I mean, all you need is one more win, or, all you need is 2 more wins outside of being 3-0, but you could lose all these games. Maybe you win on the road at UCLA. Maybe you beat Washington. I don't know. I'm not seeing the wins. I'm not seeing the wins on the schedule, and I think it's going to be tough, and I think they're going to clean house. I think Mike Locksley, while he has a tremendous amount of ties in the DC, DMV area, the kind of like the Virginia, DC, Maryland kind of areas to recruit those athletes, I just don't think it's enough. I think it's time for a change in Maryland. So, that's my thoughts on the Maryland Terrapins. Next up, we're going to the Big House. We got the Michigan Wolverines. Their win total is set at 8.5. Sharon Moore, I know we talked about it in, I believe, the first episode of the Tyler Brighton Early podcast. Sharon Moore suspended for those games. This is a Michigan team that was able to get Bryce Underwood. A lot of hype on Bryce Underwood. And there's some people saying that Michigan's going to make the playoff. Like the ambition, like the take, but I'm not going to go quite there. I mean, the win total is being a little bit more realistic, sitting at 8.5. I think that's a pretty decent total. I like Bryce Underwood. Some people are saying that he's the next Cam Newton. I say pump the brakes a little bit, see how his freshman year is, and then make the analysis. Go back next year. Those are some lofty expectations, and I do think he's going to be good. I think he's going to have a game where he's going to be lights out, he's going to dominate, and he's going to do really well. But I also think there's going to be a game where he's going to throw a stinker. And he could potentially have a slow start against, especially September 6th at Oklahoma. Obviously, the game before that, it's at New Mexico, and then we'll rally off the rest of the schedule. But at Oklahoma, how are they going to do in that game? And this is an Oklahoma team that they have a lot on the line this year, too. I think Brent Venables is on the hot seat, potentially down there in Norman. But how is it going to look? How is it going to look for this team? Alex Orji didn't have the arm, had a noodle arm, was trying to be a running quarterback. It didn't work last season. So they were kind of figuring out, they didn't know what they wanted to do with the quarterback position. Then that really held the team back. You shouldn't have that problem with Bryce Underwood. I think he is a good enough starter. But is he going to be that great potential top 10 quarterback in college football? That's some lofty expectations for a freshman. So I would say pump the brakes. He might have a slow start, kind of get used to the rhythm of things, and then he'll sail from there. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. So going on with the rest of the schedule, on September 13th, they have Central Michigan. They go on the road to Nebraska, Wisconsin, at USC, Washington, at Michigan State, Purdue, at Northwestern, at Maryland, and then Ohio State. Now, at 8.5, I think that's a fair win total, because in order for you to go over that, so their floor is you lose on the road at Oklahoma. I even say you could lose at Nebraska. You could lose at USC. Those are 3 losses right there. And then you kind of go on a stretch where I feel like you're pretty fine. You got Washington at Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, and at Maryland. Those are all games that Michigan should win, although they lost to Washington last season. And then the Ohio State game. So that's 4 losses. That's their floor, I feel like. But I also don't feel like their ceiling is that much higher, because I do think they're going to lose a game that they're not supposed to, but I think they'll probably play pretty well. They could go 10-2. Like, it's not out of the question. 11-1, I don't know if I can go there, but I'll take the over. I will take the over. I think they can go over 8.5 wins. But how's this team going to do? Sharon Moore, second season. What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? I think it's going to be a middle ground from the championship season and last season, but we'll see. We'll see. Martindale also in his second year as the DC. There's a lot of guys on this. There's a lot of good guys on it. There's a lot to be excited for if you're the Wolverines. There's a lot of potential there, but, and also they'll probably hate me just because I said, they're probably going to go 9-3. But anyway, that's another story. Michigan State. They're at 5.5 wins over in East Lansing. Let's take a look at the Spartans' schedule. So the Spartans, coached by Jonathan Smith, of course. It's a weird hire, I feel like. It's such a weird, Jonathan Smith, a West Coast guy at Michigan State. It's so weird to me. It's weird to me. And I know Michigan State has a new athletic director from Georgia Tech, which I think is a great hire. Made a lot of great hires over at Georgia Tech. Anyway, getting sidetracked. But how is it? I don't know if they're just going to, I don't know if there's a lot to desire for this Michigan State team. I just don't know. I don't know. So, like, if we look at their schedule, so right off the bat, they host Western Michigan. Then they host Boston College, Youngstown State, at USC, at Nebraska, UCLA, at Indiana, Michigan, at Minnesota, Penn State, at Iowa, and Maryland. 5.5, so that means they need to be bowl eligible at 6-6. I don't hate it. I think it's a pretty good total, but especially I think they have Aiden Childs back once again, and he was kind of like you'll beat Western Michigan. I don't know if you'll beat Boston College, to be honest. You'll beat Youngstown State. At USC, I doubt it. At Nebraska, I doubt it. UCLA, you could win that. At Indiana, I don't think you're winning that one. Michigan, I don't think you're winning that one. At Minnesota, you could, but it's on the road. Penn State, hell no. At Iowa, tough environment. And then you'll get the win at Maryland. I think 5-7 is just where they're at, though. But I wouldn't be shocked. It's more of a push. It's more of a push, but I'm taking the under. I'm taking the under on the Sparties, on the Spartans. Taking the under. Not super proud of it. What team are, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've done 6 out of how many teams in the Big Ten? Too many. So we got 1, 2, 3. We'll stop at Northwestern. But next up, we got the Minnesota Golden Gophers, coached by PJ Fleck, who's in his 9th season at Minnesota. And in 2024, Minnesota, they went 7-5 and then won their bowl game. I like PJ Fleck. A lot of people have their pros and cons about him. Some people love the energy that he brings, the kind of style that he brings. I used to love PJ Fleck when he was at Western Michigan. How is he? Some people think it's a little bit too overbearing, and, there's some talks here and there. Whether they're true or not, I don't know. I can't speculate on that. Let's take a look at their schedule. So They host Buffalo, host Northwestern State, at Cal, Rutgers, at Ohio State, Purdue, Nebraska, at Iowa, Michigan State, at Oregon, at Northwestern, and Wisconsin. Now, their win total is set at 6.5, so they need to go 7-5. So Buffalo, that's a win. Northwestern State, that's a win. Rutgers should be a win. Purdue should be a win. That's 4 right there. But after those 4, that's when it gets tricky. Because maybe you can win at they'll win. They could win the Michigan State game, so they're at 5, and then they could be Northwestern and Wisconsin, but they need to win both of those. 6.5. I'm taking the under. I think 6-6 is more likely. Just because I think they can win more games, but I don't know if they can get everything aligned to get to that win total, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just feel like it's a tall task. Some people say, "Oh, would PJ Fleck get fired?" No, he won't get fired unless he goes like 4-8. Especially since Minnesota is just a tough job to win at. Although he did have these lofty expectations when he took the job, saying, "I'm going to take Minnesota to Rose Bowls and stuff like that." But maybe time will tell. Maybe he can do that in the next 10 years if he's still there. Who knows? Who knows? That's the beauty of college football. You never know. So Nebraska. They're up next. Matt Rule, he's in his 3rd season as the head coach. Dana Holgorsen in his first full season as the offensive coordinator, kind of came in an interim role in the middle of 2024. I like Raiola as a quarterback. I know, while I think it's a little bit weird that he emulates Patrick Mahomes so much, I understand it. It's kind of like a respect for Michael Jordan, respect for Kobe Bryant, like Kobe Bryant was to Michael Jordan. And I think Raiola even said that in an interview. I think that he had at media days or something like that. Honestly, do what you got to do. You're trying to have that peak performance, kind of have that mentality mindset. I respect it. I don't understand it necessarily, but I wasn't an athlete at that level, so understandably. So honestly, props to you. While some people can be annoyed by it, what are they to say about that? They can't. They're just chirping at that point. But anyway, so Nebraska has Cincinnati. Then they have Akron, Houston Christian, Michigan State. A lot of home. I guess the first game's a neutral site game at Arrowhead. Michigan State, at Maryland, at Minnesota, Northwestern, USC, at UCLA, at Penn State, and Iowa to finish it off. Their win total is set. Why am I blanking? Oh, yeah. 7.5. 7.5. They could go 8-4. It's not out of the realm of possibility. They had a really good season last season compared to what Nebraska was before that. And if you look at it, like, you'll get your first 3 wins for your first 3 games. Then you'll probably beat Michigan State. You'll probably beat Maryland. You'll probably beat Minnesota, and that's 6 wins right there. And then Northwestern, you'll get the win there. And then at UCLA, I'm taking the over. I think 8-4, maybe even 9-3 if they put their cards right. And a lot of people that I've been talking to saying Nebraska is setting themselves up to make the college football playoff in a couple seasons. I don't know if I'll go there. I want to see how the rest of the team. I think Dylan Raiola is super talented, but maybe that's because I don't know about the rest of the Nebraska team. I'll be tuned in. I'll tune in a couple times this season just to see how that team is looking and who are kind of the stars of that team. I'm going to be watching the Cornhuskers this year. I'm going to be watching them, but I like Matt Rule, and I think he's doing good things in Lincoln. So last but not least for today, before we go into part 2 next week for our next episode, we got the Northwestern Wildcats. Their win total is set at 3.5. And Northwestern, it's a tough job. High academic standards, and they just, outside of a few Big Ten conference appearances where they made the Big Ten title back in the old, when they had the old Big Ten West. Although if the divisions never existed, they would have never been there. So it's like, I don't know. They had some pretty good teams. David Braun, he's in his 3rd season with the Wildcats. Let's take a look at the schedule. So, so Northwestern goes on the road to Tulane. That's a pretty tough game. The Tulane could be one of the best teams in the group of 5. So that is like not an easy win for Northwestern. Western Illinois, Oregon, UCLA, Louisiana Monroe, at Penn State, Purdue, at Nebraska, at USC, Michigan, Minnesota, and at Illinois. Wow. That's going to be tough. Western Illinois is probably the only guarantee game that I could see the Wildcats getting. I'm taking the under. I'm taking the under. Like, I don't know if I guess Louisiana Monroe. Okay, I'll give them Louisiana Monroe. I'll give them Louisiana Monroe. That's 2 wins. 2 wins that the Wildcats will have. But I'm not giving you any more than that. Just based on what the schedule is, it's just maybe you could beat Purdue. Maybe, but I don't know. I think I like Purdue's hire that they had getting the old Missouri coach and UNLV coach, but yeah, I don't know. Not super high on the Northwestern Wildcats, but yeah, so that's going to do it for the first half of the Big Ten win totals. We'll be doing the next half of the Big Ten win totals in the next episode, so stay tuned for that. Now, moving to outside of college football, the NFL preseason. We saw the Hall of Fame game. We saw the inductees coming in. We saw the Lions get smoked by the Chargers, but guess what? Does it really matter? Now, obviously, for the players that are practice squad players trying to make a roster, yes, it is essential. It is super important to have those games so you can get tape, so you can prove yourself to the coaches that you can make that final roster cut and be a part of the team so you can go play in the regular season or contribute for that team, I should say. But what matters and what doesn't matter, I should say, is like, should they have as many preseason games as they have? Or should they cut back on the preseason games and add more regular season games? There's a lot of discussion on that. And where I stand on this is that I do think you should have preseason games. I don't know how many you should have. I honestly, I think probably like I watched the Hall of Fame game because the Lions were playing in it, and it's also the Hall of Fame game, and I also wanted to see Brent Musburger, but I don't know. It's just like there is pros and cons to it, but I feel like it's just more of a tune-up. You know, the tickets are cheap for fans, so it's a way for a lot of families to go see their teams, even if the games don't mean anything. I think it's still important to have those. So I do think you should still have NFL preseason games, but it is a little bit hard when you're having 4 or 5 preseason games and the players are like, why are we doing this? And I get it. But then the practice squad players is like, no, I need to prove myself. I want to contribute on this team. I want to make this team. So I got to go all out. So there's you pick and choose with those things. But yeah, that's my take on the NFL preseason. So yeah. And now for the final segment, I want to bring up this idea. You know, with reality shows, and I know I'm taking a big turn. You're like, reality shows? What does this have to do? So we've seen a lot of athletes. We've seen a lot of sports personalities participate on these reality shows. Some that you can think of is, I'm a big Survivor fan, so one that really comes to mind was Jimmy Johnson. He appeared on Survivor Nicaragua. Didn't do so hot. Was eliminated in the pre-merge, in the section where they had tribes, for those who aren't familiar with Survivor. He was eliminated early. And, you know, there's been a couple other players. I know Jeff Kent also played Survivor. A couple of guys, a couple famous people played, like, The Amazing Race. So I'm going to cast some athletes and some coaches, maybe. We'll kind of see my list and what I've got written down on my notes so far. We're going to take a look at some reality shows and who might be a great fit. We're going to cast them on that show. We're going to cast them. We got a couple shows. I'm not going to do a ton, but let's take a look right here. So Survivor right off the bat. That's the one that I'm most informed on. That's the one that I've watched the most. George Kittle. George Kittle could be a great pick for Survivor. And why do I say that? Because he could be strong in challenges. He'd be really well. He's social. He's got funny. He's got charisma. He can play a really great social game. You know, he can be tight, make some really good alliances, yada, yada, yada. And then also, like, he's just mentally tough. He'll hang out there. He'll hang out on the island. He can do really well. Some other honorable mentions that we can say on Survivor maybe didn't make the cut. You know, Mikal Bridges of the New York Knicks, and, you know, get an NBA guy. They've had some NBA players before. Cliff Robinson, he played on Survivor Cagayan. He could be a potential pick, maybe. You know, Julie Ertz, U.S. soccer player for the women's team, maybe. You know, she's a strategic leader. You know. Incredibly fit. I'm totally not reading off notes. But yeah, so, and then Amazing Race. Here's another one. Why? So sorry about that. Recording stopped, but we're rocking and rolling. So where were we? Oh, yeah, we're talking about reality shows. So I was going into the Amazing Race. Amazing Race up next. We did Survivor. Amazing Race. What better pick than the Manning brothers? Two Hall of Fame brothers that, well, Peyton Manning's inducted to the Hall of Fame. Eli Manning, some people may argue, is he a Hall of Famer? Is he not a Hall of Famer? You know, not going to go there. I am going to go there. I think he is a Hall of Famer, but mainly because of the 2 Super Bowls that he won and mainly because of that David versus Goliath game against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots undefeated season. Also, by the way, Survivor David versus Goliath, another season that was in that world. I lost my train of thought. But yeah, no, they would be really good. And I think it would be a lot of fun to kind of see their relationship traveling across the world. That'd be really interesting as well. Another show that we'll look at, Big Brother. I'm going to have to go with, let's see who we can go with. Oh, Travis Kelce. He would be a great pick. He'd be, or I would say the Kelce brothers, honestly, would be, maybe that Amazing Race. That could work for Amazing Race as well. They could work, the brothers. Also, I think it's their mother who's going to be on The Traitors. She's going to be on The Traitors, which is, I believe, on NBC and Peacock. So, you know, we're getting really into it. So, Micah Parsons could be another great one. But actually, you know what's even better than Micah Parsons being on, like, Big Brother is having the entire Dallas Cowboys be on Big Brother, because that's a reality show in itself. The Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, that's a reality show in a nutshell. This whole contract negotiation, the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since the 90s. They haven't really been relevant since, like, the Des Bryant catch? No, they've definitely been relevant in other areas since then. But, like, I don't know. For them being America's team, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't think they're America's team. But the media sure does push it that they're America's team because they get ratings. Maybe because you pump it out so much that you're trying to you're trying to manipulate the audience. I don't know. I'm just spewing stuff out right now. But yeah, that's going to do it. That's going to do it for today's episode. Episode 7, 8, I believe it's 8, or I don't know. I'm losing track at this point, but hope you've enjoyed. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on, as I mentioned earlier, TikTok. We're on Twitter, and then you can listen on Spotify. You can watch on YouTube. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure to tune in next time. See ya.